Good evening, dear viewers watching RTD's English News Edition. Here are our headlines for this evening. At the Presidential Palace this morning, the head of state presided over the work of the 70th session of the Council of Ministers. Now, internationally concerning COVID-19 vaccine, PVSR report 90% of efficiency. Thank you for joining us in our newsroom. Under the presidency of the head of state, His Excellency Ismail Omar Guelleh, the Council of Ministers has held this morning the 70th session on this Tuesday, November 10, 2020. On the agenda of this session were 7 legal issues and draft decrees. And as usual, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, the spokesman of the government, commented on the highlights of this session. Let's listen to him.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Sous la présidence du chef de l'État, son Excellence M. Ismail Omar Guelleh, s'est tenue la 17e séance du Conseil des ministres en ce mardi 10 novembre 2020.
The first question concerns a communication made by the Ministry of Labor on the national plan to combat illegal employment. This plan proposes 20 actions articulated around 4 axes, all of which contribute to guaranteeing the fundamental rights of employees, preventing recourse to illegal work by guaranteeing employees' rights and providing information to employers and employees, coordinate intersectoral synergy and monitor and evaluate the plan through quantified objectives. Reinforcing controls and checks does not spare any sector, but targets as a priority the sector most affected by fraud. Strain labor market management, notably by setting up a monitoring and evaluation system for the national plan to combat illegal employment. The annual plan includes quantified objectives to carry out 5 joint and targeted control actions by the different labor control bodies per sector during the year 2020, during which at least 300 companies and 30 organizations will be controlled. Controlling companies on the obligation to post on the site indicators on their identity, company name, address, and the nature of the contract. Control employees of foreign workers without work permits and private employment agencies twice a year. Introduce new sanctions for failure to submit the lowering of the employer's register, including temporary administrative closure in case of proven illegal work. And finally, combat human trafficking and child labor for exploitation. The second issue concerns a draft degree of appointment. Abdul Qadir Musa is appointed Director of the Institute of Diplomatic Studies to replace Mr. Musa Ali, and Mr. Ahmad Ali Muhammad is appointed Director of Documentation, Information and Communication at the Ministry of Urban Planning and Environment for Tourism, his predecessor having retired. The third issue is related to a bill amending Law No. 26 in 2018, 8th Legislature relating to the creation of the National Institute of Statistics of Djibouti. The National Institute of Statistics of Djibouti, previously attached to our primacy, will now be under the supervision of the Ministry of Economy and Finance. This change has a therefore objectives to change the name of the institute and thus a first element attaching the institute to the relevant ministries, which is the Ministry of the Economy, and to modify the organization of the institute in order to strengthen the activities carried out and broaden its scope of action. The institute is now called the Djibouti Institute of Statistics and abbreviated to ST. The fourth issue relates to the draft decree appointing the members of the Board of Directors of the National Institute of Statistics of Djibouti. In accordance with Act No. 56 of the 29 8th Legislature on the legal realm of public administrative establishments and Act No. 26 of the 2018 8th Legislature on the establishment of the National Institute of Statistics of Djibouti, the appointment of the members of the Board of Directors of this institute must be the subject of a decree deliberated in the Council of Ministers. The present decree therefore aims to appoint the members of the Board of Directors of this institute and thus to deliberate. This decree deliberated in Council will be adopted and has been adopted with this in mind. We therefore complete through this adoption the establishment of an efficient and effective institute that meets the information needs of the country. The fifth issue concerns a draft decree instituting the Mobility Inclusion Card. The National Agency for People with Disabilities aims to promote the participation, integration, and equal opportunities of people with disabilities in all areas of social life. To this end, its mission is to coordinate all national initiatives in favor of people with disabilities in order to carry out advocacy actions to ensure that the issue of the disability is taken into account in all sectors. but also to ensure that care and support is adapted to the needs of people with disabilities. For example, to guarantee people with disabilities access to social assistance benefits, access to care in general, to the various state services. The agency has set up an inclusion mobility card. Mobility inclusion is a biometric card that gives its holders rights and benefits in terms of access to healthcare, rehabilitation, technical and financial assistance, education, transport, and any other benefit likely to improve their living condition, with a view to guaranteeing them the effective enjoyment of all their rights.
The ministers also discussed a draft decree related to the methods of accessing the position of teachers trainers in the Basic Education Teacher Training Center. Once again, let's hear it from the government spokesman.
La sixième question est relative à un projet de décret portant sur les modalités d'accès à la fonction des professeurs formateurs du centre de formation.
The sixth question relates to a draft decree on the arrangements for access to the function of teacher trainees at the Basic Education Teacher Training Center. The guidelines of the education policy aims to improve the quality of teaching and learning and place the professional development of education system staff as a major issue in achieving quality. Thus, the creation of the single framework for teachers by Decree number 2017-349 of the Presidency, but the effort to define and create the single framework introduced the requirement of student teachers on the basis of a license. As a result, the upward review of the academic level of teacher trainees has become a requirement. Today, this staff includes Master 2 and PhD graduates. This degree therefore sets out to the statutory provisions applicable to the training teachers at the Fundamental Education Teacher Training Center and specifies the terms and conditions of access as well as the missions that apply to training teachers. The seventh issue concerns a draft decree creating the State Diploma of Nurse Anesthetist. This provisional baccalaureate degree is intended to meet the need for quality training in the health sector for the establishment of new courses of study by including them in the framework of the master's degree. The duration for preparing the State Diploma of Nurse Anesthetist leading to the degree of professional baccalaureate is set at 3 years. This project determines the content of the training, both theoretical and practical, as well as the methods for checking knowledge and validating credits. The eighth question concerns a draft degree creating a state diploma for medical imaging technicians with a professional baccalaureate degree. The duration for preparing the state diploma of medical imaging technician leading up to professional baccalaureate degree is also set at 3 years. It determines the content of the training both in theory and practice, as well as the methods for checking knowledge and validating credits. The ninth question concerns a draft degree allocating a plot of land located in Humbuli. This 4,000 square meter plot of land is allocated free of charge with a view to the implementation of a project, a cultural and artistic project. The 10th question concerns a draft degree, yet allocation of a plot of land, and this plot of land of 300 hectares located at Grand Barra and intended for a solar project. Therefore, as a PPP for the development, construction, and operation photovoltaic power plant that will have the capacity of 30 megawatts.
The second day of the African Ports Forum continued today the panel of discussions at the Kempinski Hotel with a theme that is more current than that of integration of digital in the port world. The speakers for this panel session were composed of eminent experts first on this issue. These discussions focused on the digitization of ports and the inexhaustible benefit of digital technology in the port ecosystem. The panelists, several of whom spoke via internet, converged on the reasons why the digitalization of ports enables three things: reducing costs, reducing the environmental footprint, and finally guaranteeing logistical reliability. All this is in a complete demonstralized operational mode by transforming the port's operational environment with the technology in the cloud. The issue of cybersecurity was at the heart of the exchanges. All exports of new and used vehicles and exports or transit of containers are declared electronically, so paper documents are no longer necessary. These issues during these 2 days have laid the groundwork for a prospective approach by focusing, on the one hand, on the impact of the COVID-19 crisis on maritime activity and the best scenarios that will open opportunities for African port actors to emerge from this crisis, and on the other hand, on the challenges of African ports alliances and the need for strengthening partnerships. And on the sidelines of the second day of the African Ports Forum, the Ethiopian Minister of Transport, Mr. Awal Wagirs, was pleased to represent and participate in this African Forum alongside the officials of the various African ports and entities in charge of transport and logistics. The exchange between operators is important, he said, to optimize the efficiency of activities and exchanges in the field of transport and logistics. The exchanges also make it possible to find solutions to all the obstacles encountered in the activities, according to the minister. The countries bordering the sea and the enclave countries participated in the second African Ports Forum with a total of about 100 delegations. In Africa, transport activities certainly had some difficulties to that. In addition to the COVID-19 crisis, he said that negativity impacted the transport sector. Port activities were reduced due to the pandemic, and some employees were laid off, he said. Now we're going to initiate a new program to continue working on our economic development, added Awal Wegris, Ethiopian Minister of Transport. The Minister of National Education and Vocational Training, Mr. Mustafa Mohamed Mahmoud, has sponsored this morning the official launch ceremony on the implementation of national curriculum dedicated to Arabic-speaking educational institutions. The Minister of Higher Education and the Minister of Waqf were present at this important ceremony. They congratulated in turn the teachers who designed the textbooks, and it is important, they said, to multiply the production of these manuals throughout the country. And this project will also allow students to continue their university studies. And in this event, several ministers participated to launch new programs for Arabic-speaking private schools. The Ministers of Higher Education, Dr. Nabil Ahmed, and the Minister of Culture, Mr. Momin Hassan Barre, stressed the importance of textbooks for Arabic-speaking schools. The Minister of Higher Education has congratulated the Minister of Manpower for this day, which is dedicated, he said, to the development of curricula and the production of textbooks in Arabic language for Arabic-speaking schools. He also congratulated the teachers who designed the textbooks. It is important, he said, to multiply the production of these manuals throughout the country. This project will also allow students to continue their university studies. As a government, he said, we promise to support this project in order to develop it further, he said. As for the Minister of Culture, has also expressed delighted to participate in this day and said that he will continue to develop this program by following the roadmap established by the President of the Republic. He congratulated his colleagues from Manpower for their efforts in this program and for the development of the Arabic language. The government is doing its utmost for the development of education in general, and more particularly the teaching of Arabic, he added, and Arabic-speaking institutions must implement this program, and announced that his Ministry of Culture and Waqf will monitor and support the development of education. As for the Minister of National Education, Mr. Mustafa Mohamed Mahmoud stressed that after the implementation of educational materials, they are launching the new program for Arabic-speaking private schools in order to establish a school that meets the aspirations of our nations. Let's listen to him.
The Ministry of National Education and Vocational Training pays great attention to the Arabic language and its development in both public and private institutions. On this basis, which we announced 2 years ago to review the strategy for teaching Arabic in Djibouti as part of the Ministry's efforts to develop the Arabic language and provide public schools with a national curriculum for their own. I would like to recall, if it needed, that Arabic is taught from the third year of public primary school and Islamic education from the first year. Bilingual teaching of French Arabic at the Hassan Goulet School in Arte is a strong political demand of His Excellency the President of the Republic, Mr. Ismail Omar Guelleh, that it be placed in a perspective of multilingual development, thus promoting successful schooling and professional integration. Both nationally, regionally, and internationally, ladies and gentlemen, the difficulties of Arabic-speaking schools in terms of supply, curricula, and textbooks will henceforth be a thing of the past. The Ministry of National Education is now committed to ensuring educational monitoring and supervision by providing inspectors and pedagogical advisors competent in this field. Finally, I have taken this opportunity to express my sincerest thanks to all those who have contributed in the one way or another to the development of the Arabic language in our country.
In the morning of Monday, November 9, 2020, under the aegis of the Secretary General of the Ministry of Urbanism, Environment and Tourism, Mr. Dini Abdullah Omar, in the presence of Deputy Resident Representative of UNDP, was held at the People's Palace a workshop to officially launch the project entitled Sustainable Management of Water Resources in Agro-Pastoral Perimeters in the area of Shakaiti in Djibouti, which is part of a context of adaptation to climate change and the fight against land degradation. This project, financed by the Global Environment Facility, is being implemented by the Ministry of Urban Planning and Environment and Tourism in close collaboration with the United Nations Development Programme for a period of 5 years. The project aims to promote an integrated model for restoration of ecosystem services in the Shakaiti area watershed in order to reduce land degradation, improve self-sufficiency in basic living needs of vulnerable rural communities, and create the conditions for its replication with a strong community participation. And let's listen for more details to the Secretary General of the Ministry of Environment, Mr. Dini Abdullah.
L'atelier de lancement qui nous réunit aujourd'hui s'aligne pleinement.
The kick-off workshop that brings us together today fully underlines the main lines of the National Environmental Action Plan, which include the rehabilitation of degraded ecosystems and the implementation of programs to raise the awareness of local communities on best practices for the conservation of natural resources, not forgetting the fight against climate change. Ladies and gentlemen, the objectives of the project we are launching today is to develop an integrated model for the restoration of agro-pastoral ecosystem services in the watershed in the Dikher region in order to reduce land and water degradation, improve watershed self-sufficiency, basic living needs, vulnerable communities, and create conditions for rehabilitation. The project will develop an integrated land use and natural resources management plan at the watershed level. This innovation for the country will be tested for the Dikher watershed and documented for large-scale replications. This is bound to have a positive impact on land productivity, grazing and vegetation cover, but also on water resources. The project will open up a number of opportunities for generating income and improving the quality of life. Local women and youth from local communities are empowered to become key agents of change in terms of good management of land, water, and natural resources in the watershed in the Dikher region.
Dans le bassin hydrographique de Shakaiti dans la région de Dikil.
And as part of the multifaceted fight against malaria, the Ministry of Health has launched vector control operations and destructions of larval sites in the commune of Bulaos. To this end, the INSPD team is carrying out an anti-vectorial campaign, notably through space spraying in popular neighborhoods such as Rahiba, which are reputed to be high-risk at malaria areas. Equipped with new spray vehicles, the INSPD's mobile column and has crisscrossed the main arteries of the capital's neighborhoods to effectively combat the proliferation of the malaria-carrying mosquitoes. The Prefecture of Djibouti City, in collaboration with the National Police, held a consultation meeting to find strategic solutions against juvenile violence and illicit drug use yesterday at the municipal library. Awareness meeting for the commune of Bulaos to counter the attacks of vandalism and find sustainable solutions to occupy these young people of Djibouti. The sub-prefecture of the second arrondissement, Mr. Haibe Hared Gedid, the police lieutenant, Mr. Fuad Hussein Ege, have responded to the concerns of the elected officials of the commune and parents of the neighborhoods. Sports Hassan Gulaid Stadium hosted an open chess tournament. Several young people from various community centers in the capital, as well as other girls and boys from associations operating in the commune of Djibouti City, participated in this open tournament of this game of royalty, spirit, and tactics, highly estimated in the world. The tournament closed Saturday and took place in an atmosphere of a concentration where several young people have won places on the podium. The officials present on site said they were pleased with the good organization of the open tournament, which mobilized several young girls and boys, congratulating the lucky winners and encouraging others. And in this obituary, we regret to announce the death of Mr. Shihim Mohammed Salah, who died yesterday at the Peltier Hospital, born on January 11, 1973, after a short illness. The deceased was technical advisor to the Minister of Defense and leaves behind a widow and three children. In this painful circumstance, the management and all the staff of the RTD present their sincere condolences to the family of the deceased. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Also, we regret to announce the death of Mr. Abdul Qadir Abdi Hosh, who died yesterday in the Sudanese hospital. He is deceased after a short illness. The disease was a former retreat of the EDD. May also be a very respected wise man in Djibouti City. The regretted Abdul Qadir Abdi Hosh leaves behind his 2 widows and 11 children, their grandchildren. We pray the Almighty to welcome him in his eternal paradise. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. And in the news outside our borders, President-elect Joe Biden will wage another election battle in early January in the state of Georgia to regain control of the Senate. The U.S. Senate review will take place on January 5th in the state of Georgia. A crucial election because the 2 seats at stake can tip the balance in the upper house. In the upper house, the ballot promises to be very close in this traditionally conservative state with 2 traditional seats. Democrats will get 50 senators out of 100, a perfect tie with the Republicans. But according to the Constitution, Vice President Kamala Harris, a Democrat, will decide the eventual 50-50 vote. The Senate has a key role in the United States, and no law is passed without its consent. It also approves presidential appointments, ministers, ambassadors, and Supreme Court justice. A vaccine developed by U.S. laboratories Pfizer and German BioNTech is 90% effective in preventing COVID-19 infection. Details in this video.
Pfizer and BioNTech described it as a great day for science and humanity. Their vaccine has been tested on 43,500 people in 6 countries and no safety concerns have been raised. The laboratories plan to apply for an emergency license to use the vaccine by the end of the month. A vaccine, along with better care, is seen as the best way out of the restrictions that have been imposed on all our lives. About a dozen tests are currently in the final phase, or more commonly phase 3 trials, but this is the first to show results. This vaccine uses a completely experimental approach, injecting part of the genetic code of the virus to activate the immune system.
And that's all for this news. Thank you for joining us on the radio television of Djibouti, and have a good evening.